Yes, everybody, welcome back to Talking Wolves for a brand new video. We're going to be taking a closer look at the latest transfer news and rumours. As always, guys, be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are ready. But we are going to be kicking off with an article from the Express and Star with Liam Keane, which dropped yesterday evening, with lots of details about potential recruitment and challenges that Wolves are going to face this summer. As always, with any piece of news that comes out, it's up to you guys to use your knowledge or common sense to decide what you think is correct and what you think is false. And obviously today I'm going to be reading through it and picking out the key parts and giving my thoughts as well. But I'll make sure I leave a link to the article in the top of the description if you guys want to obviously sit down and take a read of it as well. But like I said, the article is analysing Wolves' summer challenge and recruitment policy changes. So the big one straight away is that Wolves apparently have got a black hole to fill to stay in line with financial fair play. Obviously, with the amount of money that Wolves spent this season overall, both in the summer and in January, Wolves are going to have to recoup that money in some way. Obviously, with sales, with players such as Morgan Gibbs-White, for argument's sake, that is going to help financial fair play significantly. But obviously, Wolves, to help this FFP conundrum, it would either be investment from Fosun or outside investment, which has been spoke about for years and just for whatever reason hasn't really happened to of any serious note. Fosun splashing the cash is more likely, but neither are guaranteed. What I feel straight away here is obviously Wolves as a club had quite a little bit of debt over a few years ago, and Fosun pumped loads of money into the club, made Fosun look like the heroes again, so it wouldn't surprise me to see something like this happen. Exactly here, good example is when Fosun wrote off the £126.5 million of debt. Now, one of the issues apparently is that, I'll come down to it in a second, we'll talk about it, but I think Wolves overall, obviously Liam Keane has mentioned the whole sell to buy thing. I think Wolves overall have been very, very fortunate in the fact that we have very rarely had to sell players as early as needed. For argument's sake, I would say Ruben Neves when he joined Wolves, probably Neves himself and a number of fans across world football would have said that Neves will probably be at Wolves a maximum of 2 years. Get Wolves into the Premier League, maybe stay there for a year and then move on. He's here, 5 years later. Jota is probably the biggest example of moving a player on and making profit on him. Morgan Gibbs-White is obviously another one, but was already an academy graduate. So I think in terms of that sort of point of view, we have been, quite fortunate. Wolves have spent very stupidly in the past, and I think that's something from this summer onwards that Wolves really do need to, learn from and have a much better transfer policy and recruitment plan. And I'm hoping under Matt Hobbs and under the guidance of Frank Garagaza, who joined in January with Lopetegui, hopefully that is much, much better for Wolves. So if we go down to this part here, apparently the biggest issue for Wolves right now is the ability to re-sign players and bring in fresh blood. So Wolves have a option for Nelson Semedo, who on paper is out of contract this summer. Wolves have an option that they can trigger a 2-year extension for Nelson Semedo. Apparently, as of right now, Wolves are struggling to do that. I'm not 100% sure why and how that works, but I'd assume because of this FFP black hole, this is one of the issues, apparently. So I think, personally, my gut feeling is that Nelson Semedo will stay. Wolves will trigger that clause, but we will wait and see on that one. Some other news on players that are due to leave the club. Adama Traore, which we'll talk about a little bit more shortly as well. He's open to staying at Wolves apparently, but also keeping his eye out on who else is interested. That one may well be like Jean Martino last year, where it almost goes right up to the death. But Adama, again, like I said, we'll talk about. Martino expected to leave. Diego Costa is also expected to leave, but the club want to hold talks with him to assess their options. I feel that he's done enough to earn the right for at least a conversation. Fringe players also expected to leave: Jimenez, Johnny, Pedence, possibly Ait Nouri as well could see their time at the club come to an end. A lot of clubs like Hwang Hee-chan as well, which we have seen. But the thing with Hwang Hee-chan is I don't think he'll be let go, or at least he won't be let go until after the tour of South Korea. Because what I know of is that tour of South Korea, Hwang is, as long as he's fit in the contract for that tour, Hwang has got to play in every single game for Wolves of that tour. Neves expected to go, but Wolves are going to be commanding a fee of at least 40 million, which I think is still steep for a player with 12 months left on his contract, but we'll wait and see. And Nunez, again, is a player liked by lots of teams, but obviously his poor performances may well block a move for that. Kilman attracting interest as well, could go for as much as 35 million, which I would snap your arm off for, but I suppose because of him being English and so on, that will certainly help increase that value slightly as well. Wolves apparently in incomings have got 5 targets in the pipeline, but they are unable to sign them and agree terms until they have more clarity on the financial situation. At least 3 of those players could be stolen by other clubs during this limbo. You would hope that maybe 5 of the targets, maybe striker, maybe someone like Gyökeres, Alex Scott of Bristol City, maybe. Who knows? For fans wondering who Wolves will sign, it's also important to consider the profile they're after under the current regime. The days of big money signings for the likes of Fabio Silva, Nunez and Gonzalo Guedes are gone, which I'm not completely against. Wolves are now prioritising young and hungry players, which is good. All those with a point to prove. As a result of that, they're unlikely to sign anyone for more than 20 million unless there are some drastic changes in the coming weeks. Now, what this reminds me of straight away, by the way, before we move on, each summer or each time that we move into a certain thing going to happen, i.e. a transfer window. We had it last season under Scott Sellers, where he said basically Wolves are going to have to be self-sufficient. We're going to have to be sell to buy. And then Wolves spent a ridiculous amount of money both last summer and in January. But I think Fosun knew that had to spend in January to keep Wolves in the Premier League. So, again, a lot of this is some great insight, I think, from Liam Keane in regards to certain situations of players. But I think the club are going to almost use this as a way of saying, guys, look, we're in a little bit of trouble. And then when Fosun or Matt Hobbs or whoever pulls something out of the bag, all the fans look at them and think, oh my God, you're the best thing since sliced bread. So I think we're going to see this quite often. And again, if Wolves come out in the press and say, yeah, we're going to break our transfer record again next summer, then clubs aren't stupid. They're going to start demanding more money for their players because they know Wolves have got the money. And that's something that Jeff Shee learnt from very, very early on when he made out Fosun were going to spend millions and millions to get Wolves to the top of the Premier League. I think he knows that nowadays you can't really be saying things like that in the press. Now, this is a really interesting one. And some of the blame now shifted onto agent George Mendes, who I must say, absolutely massive part of getting where Wolves are today. But I think as anything in football, it has its limits and it has its duration and time and lifespan. From day one, we were warned about the Mendes carousel. There were a number of clubs that were linked throughout Spain, throughout Portugal, even France with Monaco, that were linked with Mendes. And there were clubs after 3, 4, 5 years that got fed up of him and needed to get rid of him. And it looks like Wolves are starting to get to that point now with Mendes. Not to completely cut him off, but to almost keep him at arm's length. And that's something that Wolves probably should have done from last summer. But obviously we got stung with the likes of Guedes again. But we could see half a dozen, guessed a few clients leave Wolves this summer, and the club are actively trying to move away from over relying on him, which, to be fair, is what Wolves always seemed to do. Obviously, a big one here is that Mendes pushed alternatives to Craig Dawson, which is fair enough. He's an agent. He's going to want Wolves to look at his clients. He believed Mario Lemina would not come to Wolves. Obviously, Lemina joined. Rumours around his clients joining Wolves are rife overseas too. The rumours about Ansu Fati are a non-starter, which you would probably assume with the amount of money that was being quoted for him. Wolves obviously liking the look of Alex Scott as well. Now, this is interesting. This is really interesting. So there has been a bit removed, and I've only just noticed this. There has been a bit removed from this article about João Gomez. So after this part about Mario Lemina, there was and I've written it here. George Mendes apparently even tried to help Leon sign João Gomez because Wolves did not need Mendes' services to sign the player. That has been removed from the article, which is quite interesting. So I wonder who's giving Liam Keane a slap to wrist for that one. Most of Wolves' successes under Fosun have come from signing players in the £8 to £15 million bracket, which I fully agree with. A lot less pressure on the player. And, you know, a lot less to go wrong, I suppose, in terms of fee as well. Look at the extreme examples. Totti Gomez cost around £1 million. Max Kilman about 40 grand. Hugo Bueno for £3,000 as well. And then there's a number of players. You know, a lot of it towards the end of this article makes sense. So it's definitely worth reading, taking your time to read. Things have changed on there, which I've just said. But there's a lot of promising players currently in the Wolves ranks at the moment. There's a player that scored a couple of goals for the Wolves Academy today on their tour in India. Nathan Fraser scoring plenty of goals. Leon Chiwami is another player that's mentioned in Liam Keane's article, who Wolves have a lot of promise and interest in his development. So an article which obviously shines a little bit of doom and gloom on Wolves, but I just feel that Wolves will pull it out of the bag. I can't see there being any issues as such this summer. I think, although you don't tend to use the phrase sell to buy, I think Wolves haven't done that enough, and I think we'll do that enough this season. I think the markets that Wolves have shopped in needs to change, and we'll probably see that a lot more moving to, you know, much more experienced players like we saw in January. It seems to have worked. Players in the Championship with a point to prove. So we'll wait and see. And like I said, I'll leave a link to that article in the top of the description down below. But let's very quickly talk about some of the other rumours that have been going on. Adama Traore, who I mentioned there, Napoli are really interested in signing him apparently. However, they reckon Traore's wage demands remain a bit of an issue. He's demanding around €5 million per season, which I think works out sort of between £80,000 to £90,000 a week. Again, Wolves, Lopetegui sounds like he wants to keep him, but is Adama going to be satisfied with coming off the bench for 20 minutes each week? Who knows? Wolves and Nottingham Forest reportedly have inquired about Salernitana midfielder Lasana Koulibaly. That came from the press over in Italy. Apparently Forest did try and sign him before in January, but we'll wait and see what happens with him in the summer. In terms of centre-back as well, be interested to see what does happen with the centre-back situation for Wolves. Lots of players such as Nathan Collins as well, who it'll be an interesting summer for. But Wolves have been linked with Dinos Mavropanos, currently playing for Stuttgart, had played for Arsenal previously, but the Greek defender is wanted by a number of teams. Inter Milan, Fulham and Napoli all said to have an interest in him. Mateo Sarkic as well is pretty much third choice now at Wolves, especially with Dan Bentley coming in. He's been out on loan at Stoke City. To be fair to Sarkic, had two really decent loan spells in the Championship, but got quite serious injuries before the end of both of those. But according to sources, Stoke City are apparently in advanced talks about signing him on a permanent basis. Going to Germany, Riddle Baku, who currently plays for Wolfsburg, is a player that Wolves apparently have an interest in. Baku is an interesting player, would certainly add more to the Wolves' attack, despite him being a right back, quite an attacking right back at that. And again, could offer something slightly different to what Nelson Semedo currently gives Wolves. Also, Ruben Neves, who obviously seems to be spoken about on all of these videos, really. Ruben Neves apparently will wait for Barcelona this summer. He's not a priority for the Spanish champions. Wolves, like I said earlier, demanding a fee of around 40 to 45 million. Wolves apparently as well, no desire really to sell him to another rival or let him run his contract down. So, we'll wait and see on that one. And two young American talents that Wolves are apparently keeping tabs on. Both play for Seattle Sounders. Both represent the US at an international level. It's Obed Vargas, who's 17, and Reed Baker Whiting, who's 18. No bid imminent as of yet, but Wolves are keeping close tabs onto those two players. But guys, that is all for today. Hopefully you did enjoy it and enjoyed, obviously, my thoughts on the article that dropped yesterday. I wouldn't worry too much. I think Wolves will be absolutely fine. I think under Lopetegui, Wolves know that they've got a top manager there, and they're not daft in regards to financial fair play as well. So I think everything will get sorted out. Wolves will be absolutely fine, and fingers crossed we have an exciting summer. Roll on Everton on Saturday. Fingers crossed it's 3 points there for Wolves. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll catch you guys very, very soon.